Good morning, grade 7 students. Today is April 13, 2020, and welcome to our topic, transitive and intransitive verbs. But before that, let us have the three expectations. Number 1. Play the instructional video and answer the questions posted on this video. Number 2. Complete the assigned core tasks. Number 3. Complete the Master Connect quiz. Transitive and intransitive verbs. Learning objective. All students will use transitive and intransitive verbs in different contexts correctly. Keywords. Verbs, transitive, intransitive verbs, object. Our starter activity is that I want you to identify the verb in each sentence. Number 1. I walk around the class. Number 2. Ben believes it will rain tomorrow. Number 3. Anne remembered to bring her book. Your turn. Please identify the verb in each sentence. Before we discuss more about transitive verbs and intransitive verbs, let us have action verbs first. What are action verbs again? Action verbs tell what action someone or something is performing. I have some examples here of action verbs. These are run, kick, play, study, buy, begin. Now I have an important reminder for you. Please don't forget that action verbs are described as transitive verbs and intransitive verbs. How? A verb can be described as transitive or intransitive based on whether it requires an object to express a complete thought or not. Meaning to say, some verbs, they need an object. Why? To express a complete thought. While some other verbs, they don't need an object. So what are the verbs that they need or they require object? Or they require an object? Let us move on to our how to identify a transitive verb. An action verb is transitive if the receiver of the action is named in the sentence. The receiver of the action is called the object of the verb. Again, an action verb is transitive if there is a receiver of the action. What is this receiver of the action then? What do we call this? This is an object. Now you might be asking, how are we going to identify the object of the verb? That is a good question then. In identifying the object of the verb, you are going to ask two questions. These are the questions that you're going to ask. The first one is what, and the second one is who. Now let us practice asking these questions to identify the object of the verb. Let us have number 1. Please bring coffee. What is our verb here? In this sentence, the verb bring is transitive. So our verb is bring. And this verb is a transitive verb. But why and how? Because it has an object. The object is coffee. Let's ask this question then. What? Please bring what? Coffee. Its object is coffee, the thing that is being brought. Without an object of some kind, this verb cannot function. Number 2. Jenny threw the ball. Jenny threw what? The ball. Here, the verb is threw. Threw is a transitive. Why? Because it has the receiver of the action. It has an object of the verb. Number 3. She loves rainbows. Again, let us ask this question. What? She loves what? Rainbows. And what is the object then? Rainbows. And what is our verb? Loves. And this verb is a transitive verb because it has an object. It has the receiver of the action. Number 4. Harold called Jim yesterday. What is our verb here? Called. And called is a transitive verb. Why? Because it has the receiver of the action. It has an object. And what is the object? Harold called who? Jim. Jim is our object in this sentence. Now, let us check your understanding. Your turn. How about to identify an intransitive verb? An action verb is intransitive if there is no receiver of the action. Again, no receiver of the action named in the sentence. An intransitive verb does not have an object. These verbs, they do not need an object. Alright? An intransitive verb does not have an object. We don't need object here. Number 1. The class began. What is our verb here? Began. And began here is intransitive verb. Why? Because there is no receiver of the action. The class began what? Do we have the answer for what here? No. The class began who? Do we have the answer for who here? No. So this began is an example of intransitive verb because it can stand alone, meaning to say the thought of the sentence is already clear. Number 2. They jump in the PE class. Here, what is our verb? Jumped. And this jump is an example of intransitive verb. Why? Because there is no receiver of the action. But we have in the PE class here. What is this then? You might be asking. In the PE class is not an example of object. This is an example of prepositional phrase. So the jump here is an intransitive verb. Number 3. The dog ran quickly. What is our verb here? Ran. And this verb is an intransitive verb. Why? Because there is no object. There is no receiver of the action. Number 4. The employees gathered in the conference room. What is our verb here? Gathered. And what is this? It is an intransitive verb. There is no receiver of the action. Let us ask what? The employees gathered what? Can we get the answer of what here? No. The employees gathered who? Do we have the answer for the question who here? No. So, this gathered is an intransitive verb. Again, you might be asking, in the conference room, what is this then? This is an example of prepositional phrase. This is not an object. Now, let's check your understanding again. Your turn. Some action verbs can be transitive or intransitive. You need to determine if the verb has an object or not. Again, you need to determine if the verb has an object or not. I use only one verb here because I want you to see the difference between transitive verb and intransitive verb using one action verb or one verb. Let us have the first one. Transitive verb. The pilot flew the plane. What is our verb here? Flew. Why? Because it has the receiver of the action. And what is the receiver of the action here? Plane. Plane is our object. Let us ask the question. The pilot flew what? The plane. So we have the answer of the question what here. The plane is our object. That is why this sentence here is an example of transitive verb. Or this verb is an example of transitive verb. Flew. Number 2. I also use here flew. However, let's check. Why did I put here intransitive verb this time? The plane flew to Canada. What is our verb here? Flew. However, this is intransitive verb. Why? Let's ask the questions what and to. The plane flew what? Can we get the answer of the question what here? No. The plane flew who? Can we have the answer of the question who here? No. That is why flew is an example of intransitive in this sentence. To Canada, what is this again? This is an example of prepositional phrase. So don't get confused. Now let's practice. The guest rang the doorbell. Number 2. The doorbell rang and the dog barked. Your turn. Now for our relevance to real life application, I want you to use the transitive verbs and intransitive verbs to construct your sentences here. So I have some images. This is the first image. Okay, let's move to another slide. Okay, this is the second image. I have 2 images here, so please use transitive and intransitive verbs for your sentences. For the expert group activity, group 1 or A will have a list of sentences. They have to underline the verb and determine if it is intransitive or intransitive verb. They will also construct 2 sentences that contain the rules of transitive verbs and intransitive verbs using the images that I shared with you. Group 2 or B will construct 5 sentences that contain the rules of transitive verbs and intransitive verbs using the pictures or the images that I shared with you. Group 3 or C will create a short quiz about the rules of transitive verbs and intransitive verbs using the images also. Now, work, please don't forget to click the Turn In button right away after you complete your work in Google Slides. Again, please click the Turn In button right away because it's gonna be easier for us to check your work. And don't forget, if you're done with your Google Slides also, go to your Mastery Connect and answer the checking for understanding questions. See the ID posted on the Google Classroom. That's all for today, students, and thank you. Best of luck.